So, just before the break, today's literary element that we're going to be taking a look at is characterization, which I learned is apparently peinture des personnages in French. And so, to recognize that everybody reads at a different speed, what we're going to do before the break is assign 8 minutes or so for you to read and then 10 minutes for a break. So if we could see everybody back here at 5:10. But before you go, read page 7 in Style and Substance before the break, then take a 10-minute break. We'll see you back here at 5:10. And we're going to be having a group discussion about beware of the dog and characterization in that story. All right, welcome back. So, in your groups, what I'd like you to do now is to map characterization onto this week's story. So there we have that word map, to map something onto something. So this is a two-part method. First of all, you got to go looking for the cold, hard facts, the evidence. All right, these are things that are easy to find. So for example, you can take a look at what you just learned on page 7 and you can say, hey, the protagonist, that's the pilot, is the protagonist a round or a dynamic character, or is the protagonist a flat or static character? And you can have that discussion. It probably won't last very long because most of these are cold, hard facts. When you've analyzed all of these cold, hard facts in the story and you've all arrived at a consensus, now becomes the difficult part. And that is to either A, keep your observations within the story itself and talk about how these choices that were made on purpose by an author. The author did these choices on purpose, right? What impact does that have on the story? What does it make the story into? And you all saw my little trick, right? I showed you made a fool of myself up here, right? Doing my little trick where I go back in time, right? Yeah? Okay. So, remember? Does that ring a bell? Where you back up the tape and you play. So, how does the choice of, say, a round character impact this story versus, let's say, the protagonist, that character? How would that impact the story versus if they were a round character, right? So that's up to you. I don't have the answer to that, and neither do a lot of you. And a lot of people are going to disagree with your answer, but it's okay. As long as you can reasonably argue your point, that's all we're looking for in this course. You don't have to be right. In fact, people should be able to disagree with you. That's option A that you can do for the hard part. Option B is to map the themes and the concepts inside the story to this right here, this place, the real world. So this requires a bit of invention, but like for our nurses, for example, this is a perfect story for you. You could very easily map this story onto a lot of medical themes that exist in the real world. For example, we're talking about somebody who is highly suggestive in a weakened state by peers, family, and stuff like that. So you have a grandmother, and this happens all the time. You've all heard the horror stories. And the grandson comes in, and the grandmother's in a weakened state. And, hi, Grandma. Nice to see you. How are you doing? Could you just sign right here? I just need this for the hospital. It's not. It's a will. Could you just sign right here? So we have this theme of somebody being manipulated in a weakened medical state. And I just made this up like now. Right now, I just made that up. There are a million other ways you can map this story onto the real world outside and have a really cool discussion and be the unique and only person to have ever come up with this idea of medical weakness being taken advantage of in this particular story. And you could publish your work in a journal and you would be an author. This is what people do in university in literary analysis courses because, believe it or not, they find this fun. They've decided to dedicate their entire life to doing this and to teaching literary analysis courses at university and having fun like that. So in your groups, discuss the facts. I've put some things up here from page 7. And the next slide, I'll flip them back and forth. The next slide has some questions that you might want to consider as well in your groups. So let's have that discussion now. Could I get your sheets, please? I'm just going to come around and collect your black striped sheet. Thank you. 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 Thank you.